Hi, I'm Nancy Haas. I am with the Haas Group. I'm CEO of the Haas Group and with Keller Williams Mainline Realty in Pennsylvania. But I help people all around the United States and actually some people in Europe. So anything that you can use, keep. Anything you don't find useful, just throw away. This is called House Chit Chat, and I have a guest today. And my guest, please introduce yourself, Nina.
I'm Nina Pritzker-Cohen of Nina Pritzker Interior Design.
Perfect. We're having a designer because so many people are redoing their houses right now, right, Nina? I mean, like everybody's like madly going at it. And all that industry is super busy. So I thought it would be helpful to get some pointers from you. So one of the first things a lot of people ask about is paint colors, and if they're going to sell, what are the neutral colors? If they have some sort of a room that might be maroon or something, I recommend as a realtor, real estate agent, that you tamper that down so you don't become known as the house with the purple room or the maroon room or whatever. So, but if you're also in a new home, what colors do you use? Because the painter's coming, right? So what colors do you recommend and why?
So there are some really great neutrals that I go back to again and again. And they're all sort of in the white color palette, but whites can vary. So there's warm and there's cool and there's creamy and there's gray. And grays have been really in for the past several years. So one that I really like is Shelby Williams Agreeable Gray, because it's got a warmth to it, so it's not super cool, and it seems to blend with a lot of different colors. And if you like the creamy whites, linen white is sort of a classic. But there's also White Dove from Benjamin Moore. Linen white is a Benjamin Moore color, and White Dove is as well, which is kind of a cooler white, but you still see it. It's not a white. And you can reserve the whites for your trim and woodwork, your doors, and your ceiling. Benjamin Moore has Simply White or Super White. That can really sort of add a crisp, clean look to your creamier or your gray walls.
Perfect. I think that the smell of fresh paint in a home that's being sold is very comforting. It makes you feel like you're walking. It's one of those first impression things. And then also all the walls are clean and it just looks spotless. But once you buy that home, if you want to repaint and get rid, if the family hasn't painted, having those colors in your home is very soothing. And also, I always have the thought of resale. Like people always say, this is my forever home. And then 3 years they call me. It always happens. 3 to 5 years, the average person moves. So when you're choosing colors, even if you end up with a color, that's a blue, and we did put colors in my new home. I just moved and I used Nina, and she helped me pick some colors that are so comforting. I love them. I walk into the room and I'm like, yes. And I feel like I can still sell the home with these colors because they feel neutral enough that other people will respond to them well too. So, and by the way, Nina's information is going to be broadcast along the bottom of the cat. I want to call it a podcast. It's not really, it's a Zoomcast. And you'll be able to hit her up for other ideas. She'll help anyone anywhere in the United States, not just in Pennsylvania, even though that's where we both are, in Philly. Speaking of home buying, the biggest demographic of home buyers right now are millennials. They're buying like crazy, and they're not buying a starter home. They're like jumping in and buying like serious homes. I don't know if they would think to use a designer or not. they're so good at sourcing things out themselves. So why, Nina, would it be useful to use a designer? Like if you can speak to our audience and explain to them what's useful about using a designer, why would you just do it instead of like, I like that room, so I'm going to pick that color?
So interior design is a profession. You train for it and you learn a lot of skills when you're doing it, or if you apprentice with someone, you learn about scale and color coordination. You learn how to draw, and there are a lot of important skills that you learn. And so people could have great taste, and that's really important when you're selecting items for your home, but you have to consider the other pieces that you have, the size of the room. There are a lot of variables, and it's very easy to make a mistake just buying something off the internet. You've got to pay attention to whether or not a new sofa is going to fit through your front door. And if you live in an apartment, is it going to fit in the elevator? These are mistakes that designers themselves have made when they're just starting out, or, so there are things like that that you've got to consider. And it's all trial and error. And usually if you've hired an experienced designer, they have seen it all, and they take those mistakes and they learn from them and they apply it to your job so that it's as seamless as possible.
I want to speak to buying something off of online and then making a big mistake. But I just quickly want you to give us input. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been in the business?
About 25 years, not including schooling.
How long was the schooling to be a designer?
So I have a master's. I have an undergraduate in French and English. Mm-hmm. And when I graduated, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something creative. And I found a post-professional degree program at Drexel University. And I was able to get a master's in interior design, and it's a 3-year program. So it's never too late.
Redesign yourself.
Yeah.
Going back to your point, Nina, about yes, a millennial can just go online and get a couch because they love it, and they can even, and I did, I found something online. My husband and I went into West Elm. We sat on the couch. We're like, this is great. We love it. Because it fit our design, dream that we had in our home, which was mid-century modern. So we get it. It comes, and it was horrific. It was gigantic. And I called, and I didn't use Nina. This was pre-Nina. And I was like, oh, dear God, get in here and help me, because we have made the most terrible mistake. We were able to send it back. So here's my point about Nina. Nina came in. I wouldn't have known how to redo another couch. It's a very odd space. It's a mezzanine that floats up above the first floor. And Nina came in and she was measuring what size rug could go in that space. We just thought, we're just going to get a rug and we'll slap it down. What size rug would go in that space? Where would a couch go on that rug based on a fireplace on one side of the room and a TV on the other side of the room, and figured out what size couch we could get and even the depth of it, so that we weren't like, what came by mistake, and West Elm made a mistake, was this gigantic deep couch where I sat on it and I looked like I was 2 years old with my little feet sticking straight up. So it was really interesting to watch you, Nina, working the room and problem solving and figuring out and taking apart all of the elements of the room, including a staircase and a hallway. There was all these other things I would never take into account. So I can say, and I love staging, I stage homes, I do all of these things. I will never, and I bought a home every 2 years. And this is the second time I've ever used a designer. My first home that I used a designer with was when I was quite young, and it really looked great. And I've had this mishmash of stuff ever since. Nina has helped me deal with the mishmash of my furniture that I already had, and then helped me level up. So that's what I want to say. I really recommend using a designer. It's saving me money by spending a little bit of money. And actually, you can talk, Nina, about later on at the end what your pricing is like and what to look for in pricing, because we hadn't even talked about that before. But how would, now a millennial is really good at sourcing whatever they want, or anybody really is at this point. We all know how to use the internet and Google. Are there any other ways to find a designer? And once you see all these people on a platform, how do you begin to choose a designer?
So the internet is a good place to look. That's the norm nowadays. Everybody has some kind of presence, but it's at all different levels. Some designers just need Instagram to promote what they're doing. And I think that it is important to, it's helpful to do your research that way, but you also have to remember that this is a relationship that you are going to be developing, and this person is going to get to know you. So it's not just about what you see visually. You need to relate to that person and get along with them and feel like they're really listening to you and taking your needs into consideration. So it's always important to have a phone call. Nowadays, because of the pandemic, Zooming is the norm, FaceTiming is the norm. So you could choose to do that. But in the old days, you would, somebody would recommend a designer, or you would find them in a magazine or some kind of a directory. There are associations like ASID that a lot of designers are members of, and they usually have directories. So once you get the names, you really do want to speak to the designer and find out if there's any kind of chemistry or rapport. And then you can always get references, ask them for references so they can speak to clients that designer has had. So, I've had a little bit of experience with that, with people getting my name and emailing and asking for pictures of things that I've done. And really, I like to initiate things with a phone call. To hear a little bit more about what you're thinking, not just sort of a buzzword like, oh, I love a mishmash of granny chic and mid-century modern. That evokes something in my head. I sort of know a little bit about sort of what you like, but those ranges and styles, mid-century modern, sort of started in the 20s and went all the way to the 70s. So it's a lot. It covers a lot.
I know millennials, I keep bringing up millennials, but I do it too. Everybody pretty much does, except maybe my granny. They use a Pinterest board. My daughter recently is working with a builder and created a Pinterest board of what they wanted their outdoor patio to look like and things like that. Is that useful? Does that really give you a quick hit idea?
Absolutely, because it's marrying the description with the visual. So a lot of times people, I can explain something to someone, but a picture speaks 1,000 words, but it needs both. And very often, it's like going to the hairdresser and you bring in a picture, and then hairdressers complain that, oh, somebody with curly hair is coming in and they want some straight haired hairstyle. So, it's like, I really like this, but only for the colors, or I really like the sofa, but I don't like anything else in the picture. So usually there's some qualifiers that you have when you're looking at stuff. And but it is very helpful to have both. And usually when a picture is shown, I'll say, so what is it about this picture? And do you like this and that? And it helps the discussion.
Mm. I know when I moved, I'm going to change the topic a little bit to reimagining old furniture from another home. I had moved from an old farmhouse where I had worked with a designer and everything was perfect all the way to the curtains, and then moved to a turn of the century home, and then moved to a really modern home in Philadelphia where now I've switched to all mid-century. Can you speak to anyone that's moving, taking their old furniture with them? They're now in a new home. It's a completely different kind of home. Are you able to help them reimagine with some of the furniture that they have, and even make a recommendation like, what if we trade this piece out and bring something else in?
So this is one of my favorite topics and things to do, because at the heart of it, an interior designer is a problem solver. That's all we do. And it's good problems and bad problems. And I love to reimagine things. And very often items that you've inherited have really great bones. And if you reupholster that wing chair, you know, that's in a dated fabric, or the original fabric came in, and you do it in a solid or a contemporary fabric, you completely reinvent it, and it can be fit in with things of other styles.
Mm-hmm.
The same with painting a piece of furniture, or stripping it and staining it. An old lamp that you do a different kind of lampshade on. There are so many options, and I personally, I love to do that.
I have an old lamp I need to show you that's really cool. Just reminded me.
I
need help.
It adds character.
Yeah.
And also too, if it came from a time in your life that evokes great memories, if it reminds you of somebody, we all have people that we lost during the pandemic. And very often you don't realize, until it's gone, how you felt about it. And it might make you happy to look at it, but you don't want to look at it in its tired old state.
Right. Right. Because you can take an old wing chair that might have been in a colonial home and put a really funky fabric on it and a fun, it could totally change it. And what I'm hearing you say is you can make something old work reimagined. And like you, I bet many designers really love doing that. It's like the trunk show. It's like, ooh, this is a cool piece. How can we get this back in your home, keep it in your home, and maybe find a different place? Maybe it ends up in a bedroom instead of a living room, who knows? But right. I love that. And that's comforting to people, because sometimes when people hear designer, they think, I can't buy a whole new house, a house filled with all new furniture for my new house. I can't do that. Or I want to revitalize my old house. I've been sitting and looking at it for a whole year during COVID. Help me reimagine what I already have. So I'm not sure every designer is good at doing that. I know that Nina is good at doing it.
Thanks.
I bet.
Art is a great way. You have an old painting and you change the framing, and you can completely transform something.
You saying that, of course, that triggers. Yeah. I have a huge old vintage poster. It's gorgeous, and it's a champagne ad. And when we bought it, or when I bought it years ago when I was young, I didn't realize it was really in a flimsy frame with bad glass and just all that stuff. I just didn't notice it. It was just a cool poster. So now I move it from house to house. I think I'm on my third or fourth house bringing this gigantic poster with me. And my husband, Michael, and I just stuck it up over the big, we have really high ceilings in this house in some areas. And so we stuck it in this obvious high ceiling behind our dining room set. I have to give kudos to Nina. She didn't walk in and go, oh, this doesn't work there. Because it's this long, skinny thing, and it's a really wide area. But we took it down. I realized it needed to be newly framed. She introduced me to a framer, et cetera. So we are getting the new frame. The framer shows up. We're trying to hang it. I get Nina on the phone and say, okay, help us, because we're putting it here and we don't think it looks good. The framer was the one that said it doesn't look good. And finally, Nina was allowed to voice her opinion thoughtfully and say, what if, when you can finish the story, we moved it.
Well, I noticed it when I was installing a new rug underneath your existing dining room table and chairs, and I was trying to center the rug on the space. It's a very difficult space. Not everybody has a rectangular box of a room. Most people don't. There's always elements in your room that you have to kind of accommodate. And so it's not cut and dry where things are centered. So you have a space where it's a big, great room with an open kitchen. And so where your dining room table is centered in the room, and your sofa seating group can kind of be shifted.
Right.
So
then
put
the
the
picture
rug
was
in and then put the table on top and wanted to center it in what I thought was the space and have it make sense with the sofa seating group that I was also placing a rug under. I realized that picture was not centered where it should be, and it actually wasn't hung. And I remember texting you to say, where is that picture? And then when it came back from the framer, you kind of called in a panic, sort of wanting to shift the dining room table over, which you really shouldn't ever place furniture based on art placement, unless you have some huge sculpture that needs like a specific place, or I mean, it's a little bit of a give and take, but usually you really need to place the furniture where it should be, that everybody can get in their chair and pull their chair out. And
so where did you end up moving it to?
Oh, well, so you have this really great cabinet that was on a more narrow wall that was the perfect scale for that tall poster, because you have a double height ceiling. And so it actually really ended up being a striking view in coming through your front door to see that picture in the right sized wall over the right piece of furniture.
The new frame in that location, like you said, coming through the front door, it changed the artwork. It changed the look of the house. It changed your first impression. It seems much more grounded and sophisticated, because your eye goes boom to this gorgeous poster and these big windows next to it with this grounded piece of furniture underneath it. And I remember Nina saying, you can use me to hang things. You can use me to hang things. I was like, oh, I can hang a picture. I didn't know what I didn't know until further down in the process. And I've got things hung all over in crazy places. And Nina has to come back now and get the holes out and move the pictures around for me. So thank you for that. You saved it. You saved me, and it changed everything. So yet another plug for using a designer, and I guess not shameful plug of Nina. She's really made my house so much more comfortable. And the rug, she's so good with the colors. Anyway, last question, because we're getting out of time. We're running out of time now. Is it okay to give a designer feedback throughout the process, as they're like, because some designers could be a little pushy, like you love their taste, you love everything, but they're like pushing something and it's like, I don't like that. And I feel like I have to get it. Is it okay to give them feedback?
Absolutely. You are paying them. they are offering you a service, and it shouldn't be a cookie cutter. You could be hiring a designer because you've seen their work and you really want what you've seen that they have to offer. But no two people are alike. Nobody's taste is exactly the same. You could really love someone's taste, but when it's for you personally, it doesn't really work. And if you have a strong reaction to something that is not positive, you really need to communicate that. And if you've hired a professional that has experience, they've done and seen it all and worked with all different types of people, and they should be respectful and they should be a listener. But then it's a give and take. You've hired them because they are a professional, and if they are insisting something, both of you need to understand the other one's point of view. And it could be that they're insisting upon something because they've done that before and it was a disaster, or
Right.
they can visualize why that won't work. So both of you need to be able to communicate and describe to one another what your concerns are. Designers very often can cave, and then they sort of have regrets afterwards. And similarly, you're the one who has to live with it. It should bring you joy.
Yes.
And we've all been stuck in our homes, during the pandemic, and all of those foibles about your home that you kind of overlooked before are totally bugging you now. I mean, that's why the industry, is doing well. So you've got to live with it, and hopefully it lasts.
Right. And yes, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your home. And I love that you said joy, because you're investing in your joy, because this is what you're looking at all the time. Again, I want to reintroduce Nina Pritzker, and she's based out of Philadelphia, also works on the main line. And like myself, I've done a lot of staging of homes and helping people, because we had to figure out how to do that during COVID. I got really good at it. And I know that Nina has helped people. I know you have a client where is that one client that you helped that's on an island or something?
Oh, a vacation home in the Caribbean. But
Right.
over the course of my career, I've worked all over the place. And, designers are being helpful virtually now. The poster emergency that happened, we were able to solve it, in a FaceTime.
Right.
So
And I heard you're being flown out to San Francisco soon to help.
Maybe but it's possible to sort of work anywhere now. It's true of a lot of professions. So.
Right. I think I have a client for you in New York, as I mentioned. So you may be getting on a little train to go to New York, but we're so close to so many different areas. You can work anywhere. I can. As a realtor, I can only work in Pennsylvania, but I help people find realtors all over the United States and then help them stage their home. I help the realtor sell it by helping the person stage the home, because I'm really good at that. So again, Nina Pritzker, thank you so much for joining us. I know my audience loved you. And I really appreciate you giving us little helpful hints and giving us all of your time and some clues on how to do this and why you would want to do it. And Nina's information, again, is like right down here, hopefully, or maybe up there. I'm not sure where my person will put it. Please reach out to her and call her. She is the most pleasant person to work with. As you can tell, she has a very soothing voice, and she just helps you through the crazy times. And she doesn't get crazy, even though I got a little crazy. It's emotional. You get upset, you get angry, you get scared, there's all these things you go through as a homeowner. And it's really nice to have somebody that's measured, thoughtful, calm, and I would call Nina my design therapist. I got that from a friend of mine who actually was a therapist, who had a design therapist. And I was like, that's what Nina is. She's my design therapist. So thank you again for joining me on my show, House Chat. Again, I'm Nancy Haas
Thanks,
with
Nancy.
absolutely. I'm Nancy Haas with the Haas Group, CEO of the Haas Group, working under the umbrella of Keller Williams in Philadelphia and the main line. Call me for anything, including Nina's information, if it doesn't show up on the screen right or something. So again, thank you and take care. And Nina, I'll talk to you soon. I'm going to need your help.
Bye, Nancy.
Bye-bye.